Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the latest episode of the Writers Podcast. Today, I have with me guest DC Gomez. Hello, DC. How are you doing?
I'm wonderful. Hi, Lou. Thank you for having me.
You're most welcome. And DC, those initials are from one of my favorite TV writers. I don't know if you've ever heard of DC Fontana.
I actually have.
Ah, yes. She wrote on the original Star Trek, amongst many other series. So that's an interesting coincidence. I don't know if that's just the way it worked out or if you planned that.
Just the way it worked out. I'm that lucky.
Okay. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and then we'll take it from there.
Absolutely. I am a USA Today bestselling author. I write in multiple genres. So I do everything from urban fantasy to children's and even devotionals. So I have a very eclectic collection of works. I am a podcaster as well as a motivational speaker. So I can do a little bit of everything. So it's pretty exciting.
And I see that you have a degree in film and television.
I do.
That's interesting. Did you do that before or after you were in the Army?
I actually had my degree prior to joining the Army, which is the reason I joined. So when I graduated from film school, one of the things they teach you all the time, I went to NYU, is you need to write stuff about things that you know, which is always exciting. So I joined the military because I wanted to learn about people, of course.
Oh, okay.
It just happened to be when I joined, I was in basic training when 9/11 happened. So my life took a very different turn. So that's kind of how things work.
Yeah, okay. And so what did you end up doing in the Army?
One of the strangest things is, this is the part that my parents laughed a lot, I ended up being a mechanic. So I know. So for the girl that never changed an oil or did anything, my parents like, you did what? What is that?
Well, those are skills that probably saved you a lot of money down the road.
Nope, not at all, because I've never done it again.
Okay, so I'm always curious about writers and how they end up on the path to becoming a writer. So when you were growing up, were you a big reader?
Absolutely. I am to this day, I'm an avid reader. It's usually my escape from everything. Too bad I can get lost in a book for hours and not do anything else. So it's a blessing and a curse because you can easily get lost and not work on the stuff you're supposed to do, like writing your own book.
And what's some of your favorite authors?
I go through stages. So consistently, I am a huge fan of Neil Gaiman, in love with his stuff. Absolutely. Kim Harrison for people who listen to, read urban fantasy, Jim Butcher. So I have some of my favorites, and then I'm very blessed to meet lots of authors. So I tend to go through stages and pick up different books, different flavors. So it's all good.
And at what point did you realize that you wanted to be a writer?
That actually happened a little bit by accident. So about 5-6 years ago, I want to say, I found myself in the place, and I would like to say it was a midlife crisis, but I wasn't 40, so not really. But you find yourself looking at your life and realizing, oh my God, I'm miserable. Like, I'm doing all the right things. I'm doing all the things people say you're supposed to do, but I'm not living my purpose. I'm not creative. I'm not fully living my purpose in terms of a creative being and doing what I'm supposed to. So writing was that way to get back to the world, get back to that environment of creating. And then I just fell in love. It's just feel that fuel that I needed in terms of bringing me back to home base, if you want to look at it that way.
Right. And when did that happen for you? How old were you? Or were you in school when that happened, or was it before? Thinking like what your NYU days?
I've always known that I'm a storyteller. So I'm very, very blessed since I was probably in high school to know that my purpose was to know that I wanted to tell stories. I thought I was going to do it visually. I love creating. I dabble in anything that deals with the art. So every once in a while, I'll start painting. I'll do crafts, anything you can imagine to stay connected. The writing and publishing, seriously, I want to say, because I think we've been all writing for many years, but actually publishing happened about 5-6 years.
Okay. What was your first book?
My very first book in the it was Des Intern in the urban fantasy series, The Intern Diary. So I went all in.
And how did you find that process?
Of the creation of the book, or it's just the writing process as all? What do you mean?
All of it.
Oh, okay. So the writing process, one of the things, I am definitely very analytical. So
Mm-hmm.
when I decided to start writing the novel, I did lots of research. I ended up looking at what is the process, what does a novel look like in comparison to a script? What is
Right.
the difference between novels and novellas and how to put it all together? So I
Mm-hmm.
did lots of outlining. Definitely much more of an outline kind of girl.
Okay.
And preparing myself in terms of like, okay, how am I going to tell this story? How are these three acts going to work? How's my beginning, middle, and end? And working on creating a extremely fun and exciting story that is written, but you can visualize it as you read it. So a lot of my books have a very visual effect to them just because of my background in the
Mm-hmm.
visual world. So
Mm-hmm.
that process was actually very liberating. It was a lot of fun to create this world, to create this universe, and just let it go wild and figure it out how it went. The
Okay.
choosing of death in terms more, I grew up in Salem after I came from the Dominican Republic. So I have
Okay.
always been involved in that whole what is the supernatural world and how does that play? So that's been a lot of fun.
Mm. Okay. So why don't you give us the elevator pitch for your series, if you have one?
I do. It's always kind of fun.
Yeah.
So usually starts, and I ask this to everybody, what will you do if death knocked on your door with a job offer? Will you take it?
Mm.
So this is really where the entire series and entire premise comes into play. Isis is, which is my main character, Isis Black, happens to move to Texarkana because I think the
Mm-hmm.
town is amazing. So
Mm.
she moves to Texarkana after living in the military, trying to figure out what she wants. All the things that we do in our 20s when we're trying to find ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Unfortunately, yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, she accidentally kills Dad's old intern. So
Oh.
now, yeah. So now, like the Santa Claus, she is
Mm.
faced with the decision of, are you going to take the job? What are you going to do, little girl? And
Mm.
it's not like she has that much stuff going on in her life. It wasn't that. It wasn't that big of a sacrifice,
Right.
as Death points out. So the series is based on the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. So I have a whole bunch of
Okay.
those religious concepts. Book 5 is Judgment Day, which is definitely what will happen if the apocalypse took place and what will get the horsemen to get into the
Okay.
apocalypse mindset.
Mm-hmm.
But you get to this series introducing to magic through the perspective of Isis, and she really doesn't know nothing about it. She doesn't believe in it. She doesn't get it. And
Mm-hmm.
now she's faced that there's another world out there. And
Mm.
what is she going to do? And she has to be trained by a talking cat, a boy genius, and all the madness that you have when it comes to, urban fantasy books.
Mm. I get the impression that you're a high energy person, a little maybe a little jumping from one thing to the next. Is that a fair assessment, or am I?
No, no.
No.
So I'm a little ADD with a
Uh,
touch OCD. So as people say, I like things perfect for short periods of time, and then we
right,
move to the next one.
right.
So my series are definitely fast paced because I think that's how my mind functions.
Mm.
So one of the funniest comment I ever received was like, "Oh my God, I'm tired reading your book." I'm like, "What? What do you mean?" I was like, "It doesn't stop." I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about." So
Ah,
I
so it's
had
a
to giggle
Spinal Tap 11 all the time.
all the time. And it doesn't get slower. I think that's the fun part because as you get much more into your craft and you enjoy what you do,
Mm-hmm.
I'm very much like I want things to pick up speed and we need to move and I'm going to take you to all these places. And a lot of my readers was like, oof, that was a lot. Like, I don't know what happened. That was a
Mm-hmm.
lot. So it is a
Right.
really fun journey just to watch it. So Plague Unleashed, which is book 2 in this series,
Mm-hmm.
it's Isis is 8 months in the job, which is kind of exciting. Like she survived the first week, which was hell.
Mm-hmm.
Was yes, that was a hit and miss. Funny
Right.
stat. I was like, ooh, that was kind of touchy based. So the first book introduced you to some rogue witches going crazy in Texarkana. And for anybody
Mm.
who's ever been down to the South, I live in the Bible Belt. So it's like, what? Witches in Texarkana? What happened? So
Mm-hmm.
book 2 is what would happen if Pestilence, second of the horsemen, because you get to introduce to a new horseman in every book,
Mm-hmm.
Matt accidentally lost a whole bunch of those things they do, like plagues. And now you
Mm.
got zombies running in Texarkana. So
Okay.
so it's a fun version of what will happen if we have zombies. And hey, by the way, death doesn't want you killing people. Imagine that. So
Mm-hmm.
what do you do with all these humans that become zombies? Like, where do you put them? Well, you find an antidote to this madness. So in case you're wondering, we put them in the basement of a church. So don't tell anybody.
So, so you've mentioned the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse several times, but yet I see you have 5 books in the series so far, or planned.
Yes.
How's that?
How does that work out?
Yeah.
So book 1, you get death because it's definitely from the perspective of Isis. So you pick up characters as you go along. So I try not to give you an entire dump of all these characters. But you pick up Death
Sure.
and Isis. Book 2, you're going to meet Pestilence. So the
Okay.
horsemen in my world have a very family dynamics of sibling rivalry, and everybody wants
Mm.
Death's attention. Imagine that. So
Okay.
then book 3, you're going to meet War and
Uh,
his own intern and his dynamics of madness and ruling all the militaries in the world.
mhm.
And then to give people a perspective, book 4 is all about famine. So
Mm.
if you were in charge of trying to get people to starve to death, what would you do? And famine runs all the diet industries. So famine is a billionaire and runs it all. And every day he's trying to figure out how he makes more money out of starving people.
Oh. How many books is it going to be 5 in the series then, or is there more, or are you just going to go as long as it's popular?
This series, it's more, you get 5 and 3 novellas. And for this
Okay.
series, because book 5 is Judgment Day. So this is where all the enemies come together to attack the horsemen and their madness.
Okay.
So with this specific side story in it, it's wrapped up. What you are going to see is the new universe develop. So it's going to be the Reaper's universe. So
Mm.
my entire urban fantasy world is going to revolve out of that. So you're going to see Isis and the team coming in different books. They're going to make appearances in different where. Constantine is absolutely going to be showing up because he's my
Oh.
talking cat.
Oh, okay.
And when you're a 5 dozen-year-old talking cat, you can show up anywhere you want because that's just the
Exactly.
way it rolls.
Isis, what is her through line through the series? Like, you start her out as a 20-year-old trying to find herself, but is there something that she's trying to accomplish, or character-wise, is there something that you've got driving her?
With Isis, one of the things that I was looking for her to do is to define her family. So
Mm.
that's really what drives her through it. She is this fun character that is very, very loving, but at the same time, she would do anything for her family. And her family changes in this series because she is her parents passed away when she was younger, so she doesn't have that concept. Her godmother's the one who raised her. She's a little hippie. She has a whole side story in this series as well. But
Mm.
Isis is truly just finding her place, trying to figure it out. Where do I fit in? And she meets this group of extremely crazy, insane intern world. And
Mhm.
she's the glue for that. She's the glue that keeps them together. And you get to see in this series, what is she going to do or what she wouldn't do to save the people she loves?
Mm. I see that there's 10 interns, including Isis. Is that right?
Yes, every continent has an intern and they don't last long. So this is the realm.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Life,
And
life, yes.
go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to let you know, life expectancy for the intern seems to be a little short.
So does that worry Isis at all?
She should be.
Yeah.
She needs to be very aware of it. So
Uh-huh.
the fun part about the interns is, as you go through this series, is you realize what really happens because they work for death. Do they
Mhm.
really die? What do they do once
Right.
they transition from like the human world? So you do get that sense of like, oh, that's really what happens to them. So there's a whole twist to it that people don't have to feel like, oh my God, they should all die and disappear. They do
Mm.
work for death. So death has a saying on it. And for people who always wonder, why does death need an intern? Because kind of the underlying current, I
Mhm.
wanted death to be, think about the UPS of the delivery world. Like wherever you think, wherever you think your soul is going to go, that's what death's going to deliver. So if you think you're going to hell, death is
Right.
going to drop you off there. If you think you're going to heaven, she's going to make that deliver. And in
Mm.
this series, she is a woman. So death comes in the shape of a woman. For Isis, everybody gets to see death however they feel like it. So if you think death is going to come in terms of the Grim Reaper, that's what you're going to get at your door.
Mm.
So the job of the interns is very simple. Each one has a continent.
Mm.
Anything that's going to stop the delivery of the souls, they got to fix it. So that's why if anything is stopping death from being on time and delivering souls very, very cautiously, because death really wants to protect the souls as they transition,
Mhm.
then the intern's job is to go figure it out. I'm like, okay, what happened? Go fix it. So their job
Okay.
is a little dangerous because they have to
Mhm.
deal with everything around this and everything in the supernatural world. So yeah.
Okay. And is she based in Texarkana? Does she meet up with these other interns, or will she?
They all send her after, because the life expectancy so the interns is really short. About
Mhm.
month 6 and 8, the other interns like, hey, welcome to the family. You're alive. So we can make friends with you. So
Right.
it took them a while to warm up to her because they just don't last.
Right.
As she transitions in the series, she truly realizes there should be a much better recruitment process for interns and that they
Mm.
should have a much better collaborative ethos For
Mhm.
Judgment Day, you truly get to see a little bit of the other interns come into play.
Okay. And Isis, what kind of skill set does she have? Is she gifted with supernatural powers or anything of that, or is she just good with weapons, or like what's her deal?
No supernatural power till she meets death. She is a musician. She was in
Mm.
the 82nd Army Band. So what happens when death comes into your life is death gives you gifts to help you do
Mhm.
your job. So you get some of the special abilities, one of them being able to talk to the dead and see the dead and touch the dead. So
Mm.
hence the reason they're able to see. They don't like to be called ghosts. They're called souls. So
Mhm.
they're able to transition the souls. And sometimes the last person the souls will see will be the intern. For
Mhm.
Isis, because she's a musician, Death was able to enhance that ability. So she's able to play any instrument and
Mm.
convey that emotion. So if she wants people to freeze, she can play an instrument and get people just to doze off. So
Wow.
and the good news about Isis as she gets better is she is a prior soldier. So she has some training.
Mhm.
Book one, she was really rusty because Constantine was like, God, girl, you need some training. What happened? She was not very good.
Right.
Had a couple soldiers be very offended. I was like, hey, this takes place in a week. She can't just become Jackie Chan overnight. Like the girl's been out of the military for a while.
Right.
Give her some credit. She does get better. So then you
Right.
get to see her much in her element in terms of the fighting, the actions, and how well she can carry herself.
Mm. So you said 5 books and 3 novellas? Is that
Yes.
right? And you have that all mapped out in your head?
The good news is because this series has been going on for so long, you can actually get them all now. This series is
Okay.
complete. Yeah.
Ah. Oh, okay. And
Yes.
including the novellas as well?
Including the novellas. It's interesting because my main novels with Isis are all from her point of view, is all first
Mhm.
person. The novellas are third person. So there's a little bit
Oh,
different.
okay.
So you get a little whole different flavor to that.
All right. So let me rephrase my question then. So when you were writing the series,
Yes.
did you have it all mapped out?
I knew that I wanted to do 5 books. The novellas were a little bit of a surprise to me.
Mhm.
Those happened to some extent to extend the plot and a little bit side projects that I was doing. So those just kind of happened. I wasn't planning on them. I'm glad that I did because they're a lot of fun.
Mhm.
I knew that I wanted to introduce a horseman per book. I knew that much. I knew that I wanted to introduce
Right.
another aspects of the supernatural world. So like the first one has witches. I wanted zombies in the second one. I wanted vampires, elves, and even demons in the third. I want shifters in the fourth. I knew that essence. So when it came to the transition, I kind of knew where I wanted the series to go.
Mhm.
Once I started outlining them, I was able to pick what is happening here. Why is the
Mhm.
tension behind my elements? What is the object of desire for Isis? What is she trying to say? So most of the books, they're urban fantasy. They have a little bit of a mystery going on. She's trying to either solve something, find somebody. I have a
Mhm.
lot of people get kidnapped in the series, so she's always
Mm.
searching for people. So you get a lot of that creation in terms of that universe that while the magic is there, it's always in the back.
Okay. It sounds like a mashup of Supernatural and the Dresden Files or something like that.
It is really interesting because I honestly did not do it on purpose, but it's very
Ah.
urban fantasy. So you do get those elements that are very traditional to the genre for people who are enjoying it. So I want it to be more than just here's magic. Okay. But what is the
Mhm.
magic going to do? So it's
Right.
introducing you to the world underneath. If it makes any sense, it's almost giving you,
Yep.
it's almost like good omens. You know the horsemen are coming, but
Yeah.
what do they appear of? So my question was always, what are the horsemen are doing while they wait for the apocalypse? So the
Mhm.
intern diaries gives you that concept. It's like, oh, that's what they do. Oh God, don't do that.
Right. Right. And does the scale of the story ramp up with each book? Like, does it get bigger and bigger?
It does.
Mhm.
Judgment Day is definitely an intense journey of there's a lot of stuff happening. It is
Mm.
nonstop action. It's almost think of like the Avengers Endgame or Ultron. It's that kind of
Right.
it's that kind of madness and fighting that you're gonna see at the end of that book that is really fun.
Mhm.
So we start out very mundane magic in book one, and little by little you get a little more. If you're interested in following the fun of the series, you can. One of the
Mhm.
things that I have for a disclaimer for people is because I do write in multiple genres, I tell my readers if you don't like fantasy, don't pick up the series because it's only going to get worse for you. You are
Mhm.
not going to get away from the magic.
All right.
Yeah.
So that's that series, but you've written other books as well. I don't really know where you want to go from here. You've got like nonfiction books as well as children books, children fable books. So I'll leave it up to you. Where do you want to go next?
I can give you a little peek into the world and how I see things. You asked, if I
Sure.
jump from things to things. I do. My books are a great reflection of that.
Hmm.
Because I do a lot of fantasy, I have readers that don't enjoy it. So at
Okay.
one point in time, I wanted to do a romance series. Did not
Hmm.
turn out very romance, but it's a really fun, humorous, just fiction. It's called The Cat Lady Special. It's book one in that series.
Hmm.
I have a depressed cat lady, pretty much, terms arms dealer. So, so this is very much into the whole Breaking Bad world. You know, she
Okay.
she finds herself losing her house, and at the very beginning of the series, like I have to warn people, like it's a really intense opening because she starts contemplating suicide. She has
Mm.
nothing to do. She has nothing going for her, and then there's that knock on the door. And she's finding herself like, why do I have to lose? I have nothing going for myself. One of her statements to herself is like, I can't grow weed. I don't know how to make any of this stuff, but I can sell some guns. I know some guns. So she takes this leap of faith. And once again, I think the premise with a lot of my books is family. The things that my main character, Angela, would not do for herself and saving herself, she would do it for her family. She's like, things that she would never imagine doing because in her mind, like I have nothing going. But the moment that people mess with her people, she's like,
Hmm.
no, we're going to make this stop. So you get fun, humorous. I'm always very pleased when people read it because they're like, I don't know where I'm going with this, and
Hmm.
they take the journey down the rabbit hole. They're like, I'm really surprised and pleasant. And I think I have people that honestly says like, I love Isis, but Angela's my favorite. I was like, it's okay.
Okay.
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
So
Oh, cool.
so you have adult books and then go all the way on the opposite side. We go down children's lane. So Charlie's Fable is based specifically on how do I teach little ones to truly find themselves. So Charlie, What's Your Talent is the first one in that series. And it's designed to help parents, grandparents, anybody that has little ones truly have those conversations with their babies about, okay, what is a talent? What do you enjoy
Hmm.
to do? How do you enjoy this life? And truly give them a perspective that they are talented, that they are creative, and that they can do a lot of things.
Right. Very good. And what are you working on right now?
I am currently working on book two. It's called The Traitor. It is one of the main side characters, I want to say, in the Intern Diary series is Eric, who happens to be a witch. He was the cop in Texarkana. And at the end of Judgment Day, the Order of Witches was betrayed. So he
Mm.
decided he was going to join the order to fix them. Now he finds himself just being their assassin. So he's like, I don't like this job. He is, well, he's great at it. He's horrible. He's having all these issues in terms of this path that he chose from himself. So book
Mm.
two is now, first one is a novella, really fun, really short to introduce Eric in his new role. Book two is trying to figure out who really betrayed the order and can Eric get out of this mess that he found himself in.
Mm. And from the craft side of things, do you have a set schedule or do you work well on a word count? Like, how do you track your progress and set deadlines and things of that nature?
I'm very word count focused, and I know
Hmm.
not many people like that process, but it's the analytical side of me that needs it.
Sure.
Because I
Right.
can tell you, okay, I'm writing a chapter a day. Every chapter is 2,000 words. I need this many chapters to complete this, and this is how many days I need. So it goes down to straight basic math,
Right.
and it's fairly solid and simple. Like, okay, this is what I need to do. I
Hmm.
work great under pressure, as much as I hate to admit it.
Mm.
So it's one of those things like, okay, this is what's going to get done. And if I'm trying to get this completed, you might not sleep for a while, but this needs to get done now. So I can truly embrace the power of like short deadlines and just being able to commit to what I'm doing. The fun thing about it that I think I have to give a disclaimers to people is by the time I start writing, I have spent months with this story. I have an outline
Okay.
already.
All
So my
right.
process is already in my mind. I know where the story is going to go. It's just sitting down and put it on paper and letting it play.
Mm. Okay. And I see also here that you're a fellow podcaster. And is that still ongoing for you?
It is. It's a little slow when I start writing. I have to
Mm.
let my listeners know it's some things have to take priority over others. So
Right.
Inside the Minds of Authors is specifically designed to introduce the world to authors with whatever book they're writing. So the authors
Okay.
do get to read a portion of their books. So
Ah.
that's how we start. So we can all have that same common language. We all want to be able to
Mm.
figure it out, like, what is this book about? So the authors introduce their books, and then we just have a really fun discussions, very much like we're doing now. It's like, what is this book about? Why did you write it?
Hmm.
What makes you tick? So you asked if I was an avid reader. This is
Hmm.
my way of getting the best of all worlds, like talk to authors about books. It's
Right.
amazing.
Yeah. The exact same reason that I do this podcast. So it's an interesting idea to have authors read from the books. I might have to incorporate that into this. I'm going to steal from you. I hope you don't
Go for
mind.
it. Not at all. Just make sure to have a time frame, because sometimes it was like, how long do you want? I was like, I used to leave it very open. Then I was like, we can't do 20 minutes of this book reading. Like, you get 5 to 7. Pick
Right.
the portion you like, because
Yeah.
eventually like it's a 30-minute show. We still have to talk. Keep it short.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that's all the questions that I had. Is there anything that hasn't come up that you'd like to mention at this time?
I think we covered everything. Unless you can think of something much more exciting to discuss, I'm in.
Well, did you like the recent adaptation of Sandman on Netflix?
I am so addicted to it. So everybody has the like live dream. My live dream is definitely to meet Neil Gaiman. I'm like, how do I work with you? Because you're officially my soul being. I love him to death. So to give you a perspective, one of my friends came up to me. She asked the question, like, have you seen The Sandman? I was like, yes, I did. She goes, you do know I was going to send you a message and ask you, did you write this? Because your books flow the same way. I was like, that is the best compliment I have ever heard. Like, I wanted to cry that day. I know. Right. So yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's with streaming services, it's a great time for writers. That's for sure. I'm a big Stephen King fan, so I'm really looking forward to. He's got Mr. Harrigan's Phones coming out on Netflix in October, and I loved his Dark Tower series, and then just read Fairy Tale. So yeah, there's just so much good stuff out there.
Did you like Fairy Tales? Because I just order it. It's on my list. I was like, how is it?
I did like it, and he covers a lot of ground. And the interesting thing is with King is, and I think probably different from your writing, because it sounds like to me you jump in media res, like in the middle of the action, whereas King tends to pretty well make you get to know these characters before he actually gets into the meat of the story. Whether you like that or not, that's a subjective thing. I personally love that. I could have read just a story about these characters in the real world before he even moved into the fairy tale world. So it was very interesting. And he pays homage to a lot of other fantasy elements and writers, Ray Bradbury, Lovecraft, Jack and the Beanstalk, Goldilocks. It's Rumpelstiltskin. Yeah, so it's pretty amazing. And there's a dog, and I'm a dog person, so
that is awesome.
Yeah, it's I think that is about everything. So unless you have something else you want to say, I'm going to let you go back to your weekend and enjoy your time.
Thank you so much for having me. It's truly been such a pleasure. And it's such a fun conversation. So I appreciate it.
I appreciate it too. I love your energy. I wish you could bottle it up and sell some of it.
I need to make that a project.
Yeah, exactly. All right, DC. All the best with your future projects. And hopefully down the road, I'll have a chance to talk to you again about something else new and exciting that you've done.
Oh, thank you so much. You have an amazing weekend.
You too. Thank you very much. Take care now. Bye-bye. And scene.